You have $1 million. You can put it into Dubai, or you can put it into Miami. Dubai has the reputation for high rental yields, low personal taxation, and explosive growth. Miami gives you the dollar, the U.S. legal system, and one of the world's most established property markets. So Dubai sounds like the obvious winner. Except there's a problem. The property with the higher rental yield isn't necessarily the property that makes you more money. Because the number that matters isn't the rent. It's what survives after buying costs, vacancy, management, maintenance, taxes, insurance, association fees, appreciation, and eventually the sale. So we're going to do something most Dubai versus Miami videos don't. We're starting with exactly the same amount of money, $1 million, and we're going to follow two investors for 5 years. Alex buys Dubai. Michael buys Miami. Every major cost goes onto the scoreboard. And at the end, we're going to sell both properties and find out exactly how much money each investor has left. Because by year 5, the winner may not be who you expect. The two investors. Meet Alex. Alex's priority is simple: cash flow. He doesn't care whether his property has the most famous skyline. He wants his $1 million producing as much income as reasonably possible. Now meet Michael. Michael has a different priority. He wants exposure to the US dollar, a mature property market, and the legal and financial infrastructure that comes with owning real estate in the United States. He's willing to accept lower cash flow if he believes he's getting a different kind of stability in return. Both have exactly $1 million. No mortgage. No additional investment. No inheritance. No extra cash. Just $1 million. And we're going to use the same 5-year holding period for both. One more important point. This is a base case illustration, not a prediction. We're using deliberately simple assumptions so you can see how the money moves. If the assumptions change, the winner can change. That's actually the point. Because real estate isn't about finding one magical city. It's about understanding which assumptions your investment depends on. Year 0, buying the property. Let's start with the purchase. Alex looks at Dubai. Instead of spending the entire $1 million on the apartment, he sets a $900,000 purchase price. Why? Because spending the full $1 million on the property would leave him almost no room for transaction costs or reserves. Dubai's land department lists a 4% sale registration fee, split between buyer and seller under its published service information. For our model, we're also allowing for a 2% buyer brokerage fee plus VAT. That gives Alex approximately $900,000 property, $36,000 DLD fee, $18,900 brokerage including VAT. Total initial outlay, $954,900. That leaves Alex with $45,100 cash reserve. Now Michael does the same thing in Miami. He also buys a $900,000 condo. For this model, we're assuming approximately 5% in buyer-side closing costs. That's $45,000. Michael therefore starts with $945,000 invested and $55,000 in reserve. So after the purchase, scoreboard, Dubai, $45,100 cash reserve. Miami, $55,000 cash reserve. Miami is ahead. But this isn't a race yet. The properties haven't made a single dollar. What does each property produce? Now we get to the number that makes Dubai so attractive. Rental income. For our base case model, Alex's Dubai apartment produces a 7% gross rental yield. On a $900,000 property, $63,000 gross rent per year. Michael's Miami condo produces a 6% gross rental yield. That's $54,000 per year. So before expenses, Dubai is already ahead. Year 1, gross rent. Alex, $63,000. Michael, $54,000. Scoreboard, Dubai 1, Miami 0. But don't celebrate yet, because gross rent is the most dangerous number in this entire comparison. It looks impressive. It is easy to calculate. And it is not what the investor keeps. The gross yield trap. Alex looks at his Dubai statement. $63,000. 7%. He thinks, that's a great investment. But then 5% of the potential rent disappears through vacancy. Now he's not collecting $63,000. He's collecting roughly $59,850. Then comes property management. We're modeling 7% of collected rent. That's roughly $4,190. Then maintenance. We're budgeting another $9,000 per year. And finally, we're allowing approximately $12,000 per year for service charges and building-related ownership costs. That leaves Alex with approximately $34,660 per year. That's the number he actually gets to keep in this model before his investor-specific income tax position. Not $63,000. $34,660. That is the difference between gross yield and net cash flow. And now let's see what happens to Michael. Miami's rental check. Michael collects $54,000 gross rent. 5% vacancy reduces that to approximately $51,300. 8% management costs him about $4,104. Then we're modeling $9,000 in property tax, $10,800 in condo association fees, and $4,500 in insurance. Together, those costs leave Michael with approximately $22,896 per year. Again, this is a simplified illustration. Actual Miami property taxes, insurance, association dues, and rental economics vary significantly by building and location. But look at what just happened. Dubai generated $34,660. Miami generated $22,896. The gross yield difference looked small, 7% versus 6%. But after expenses, the annual cash flow difference is nearly $11,800. Year 1 net cash flow. Dubai, $34,660. Miami, $22,896. Scoreboard. Dubai 2. Miami 0. Now Dubai looks like the obvious winner. And this is exactly where most comparison videos would stop. We're not stopping, because the next 5 years are where the calculation gets interesting. The Miami bill that doesn't come from the apartment. Michael owns a beautiful $900,000 condo. But the apartment isn't the entire asset. He's also part of a condominium association. And that means the financial health of the building matters. Florida law requires structural integrity reserve studies for qualifying residential condominium buildings 3 habitable stories or higher, with rules covering major components such as roofs and structural systems. The law also allows certain capital expenses to be funded through regular or special assessments, subject to the applicable rules. So imagine Michael gets an email from his condo association. It doesn't say, "Your apartment lost value." It says, "The building needs money." That distinction matters, because Michael can have a perfectly renovated kitchen, an incredible ocean view, and a great tenant, and still face higher costs because the building itself needs repairs. That's why Michael isn't just investing in a condo. He's investing in the financial health of an entire building. And that risk has become much more important in Florida's condominium market. But Dubai has a problem too. Alex looks at his Dubai statement. The cash flow is better. The taxes look attractive. But then he asks the question Michael has been asking. What happens if supply catches up with me? Imagine Alex owns a $900,000 apartment. He's expecting strong rent. Then thousands of similar apartments enter the market. Suddenly tenants have choices. Developers offer incentives. Landlords compete against each other. Alex hasn't done anything wrong. His building hasn't collapsed. His apartment hasn't changed. But his competition just increased. That's the risk of a market that can build aggressively. And Dubai has experienced what happens when property supply, speculation, and global conditions move in the wrong direction. The 2008-09 financial crisis produced a severe Dubai property downturn. The lesson isn't that Dubai is destined to crash again. It isn't. The lesson is simpler. A high-growth property market can work brilliantly until the assumptions behind the growth change. So Alex has developer risk, supply risk, market cycle risk, and, especially with off-plan property, delivery risk. Michael has insurance risk, building risk, tax risk, association risk, different city, different danger. Year 2. Now we move forward. No new money, no extra investment, just the properties. For our base case, we're assuming Dubai appreciation, 4% per year. Miami appreciation, 4% per year. Notice what we're doing here. We're giving them the same appreciation rate. Why? Because we don't want the final winner to depend on us simply declaring that Dubai will appreciate faster. We're testing something more interesting. What happens when both properties appreciate at the same rate, but their ownership economics are different? After year 1, Dubai property value, $936,000. Miami property value, $936,000. The real difference is the cash flow. Alex has accumulated roughly $79,760, including his original reserve. Michael has accumulated roughly $77,896. Dubai is still ahead, but only by around $1,865. The scoreboard is getting closer. Year 3. The gap starts to matter. Year 2 passes. Then year 3. The properties continue appreciating. But Alex continues collecting more net rent. Michael continues paying his larger collection of ownership costs. After 3 years, our simplified model gives us approximately Dubai property, $1,012,378. Accumulated reserve and net cash flow, $149,082. Miami property, $983,454. Accumulated reserve and net cash flow, $123,688. Now the difference is much more obvious. Alex has both higher property value and higher accumulated cash flow. Scoreboard. Dubai pulling ahead. Miami still in the game. But now we're approaching the part that matters most. Selling. Year 4. Don't fall in love with the appreciation number. This is where investors make another mistake. They look at the property value and think, Alex's apartment is worth $1.05 million. Great, but Alex doesn't own a $1.05 million pile of cash. He owns an asset that still has to be sold, and selling costs money. The same is true for Michael. So when you see $1.09 million property value, don't write $1.09 million profit. Not even close. You have to sell, pay the relevant transaction costs, handle taxes and withholding where applicable, and then see what's actually left. That's why we're waiting until year 5 to declare the winner. Year 5, time to sell. 5 years have passed. Alex and Michael are both ready to sell. Let's stop the story here and put the entire scoreboard on screen. No more percentages. No more vague phrases. Just dollars. Alex, Dubai. Starting capital, $1 million. Property purchase, $900,000. Initial purchase costs, $54,900. Cash reserve, $45,100. 5-year net rental cash flow, approximately $173,300. Assuming our $34,660 annual net cash flow figure stays constant. Now the property itself, starting at $900,000, growing at 4% annually for 5 years, approximately $1,094,988. Now Alex sells. For this simplified model, we're allowing a 2% seller transaction cost. That leaves approximately $1,073,088 from the sale. Add Alex's accumulated cash, $218,403, and his total after 5 years becomes approximately $1,291,491. Remember, that's a model, not a promise, not a forecast. A 5-year scenario using the assumptions we've shown you. Now let's see Michael. Michael, Miami. Starting capital, $1 million. Property, $900,000. Initial closing costs, $45,000. Cash reserve, $55,000. 5-year net rental cash flow, approximately $114,480. Now the property appreciates at the same 4% annual rate. After 5 years, $1,094,988. Exactly the same property appreciation assumption we gave Dubai. But now Michael has to sell. For our simplified model, we're using approximately 6% selling costs. That leaves roughly $1,029,289. From the sale, add Michael's accumulated cash, $169,480. And Michael finishes with approximately $1,198,769. The final scoreboard. Let's put them side by side. Start. Dubai, $1 million. Miami, $1 million. After purchase. Dubai reserve, $45,100. Miami reserve, $55,000. Miami leads. After rental income. Dubai pulls ahead. After 5 years of net cash flow. Dubai, approximately $173,300. Miami, approximately $114,500. Dubai leads. Property value after 5 years. Same 4% appreciation assumption. Dubai, approximately $1,094,988. Miami, approximately $1,094,988. After selling costs and accumulated cash. Dubai, $1,291,491. Miami, $1,198,769. Difference, approximately $92,700. Under this particular base case model, Dubai wins. But now comes the most important part. The winner isn't really Dubai, because change the assumptions, and the answer changes. Suppose Miami appreciates faster. Suppose Dubai rental yields fall. Suppose Alex buys the wrong off-plan project. Suppose Michael buys a building with unusually high insurance costs. Suppose Miami property taxes rise. Suppose Dubai service charges are much higher than expected. Suppose either investor has financing costs. Or suppose either investor's tax residency creates a completely different tax bill. The $92,700 advantage can disappear. That's why this isn't really a story about Dubai beating Miami. It's a story about assumptions. Alex wins this model because he gets higher net rental cash flow, while we give both properties the same appreciation rate. Michael accepts lower modeled cash flow in exchange for exposure to a different market and legal environment. And there is another issue we haven't treated as a final tax calculation. FIRPTA. If Michael is a foreign person selling U.S. real estate, the IRS generally requires 15% withholding on the amount realized, although exceptions and special rules apply. That withholding is not automatically the same thing as his final tax bill. So the actual amount Michael ultimately keeps depends on his specific tax situation. And that's exactly why international property comparisons cannot responsibly end with, Dubai has no tax, or Miami is safer. Those are slogans. Investment decisions require the whole calculation. So what should you actually learn from this? If you're Alex, and your number one priority is maximizing potential rental cash flow, Dubai can be extremely attractive. The UAE does not impose individual personal income tax, and Dubai's transaction system has relatively clear registration fees. But you have to respect the risks. Don't blindly buy off-plan. Don't assume today's rental yield will remain forever. Don't ignore future supply. And don't assume every developer deserves the same level of trust. If you're Michael, Miami can make sense for a completely different reason. You're buying into the US market. You're getting dollar exposure. And you're operating within an established legal and financial system. But you have to investigate the building. Not just the apartment. Look at reserves, insurance, association finances, inspection information, upcoming capital projects, rental restrictions, property taxes, and the possibility of special assessments. Because a beautiful condo can still be attached to an expensive building problem. The real question, so, would you rather have $1.29 million in our Dubai scenario? Or $1.20 million in our Miami scenario? Most people will immediately choose Dubai. And under our assumptions, that's rational. But here's the question serious investors ask next. What would have to go wrong for that $92,700 advantage to disappear? That's the question that matters. Because if Dubai only wins when everything goes right, that's not necessarily a better investment. And if Miami wins only when appreciation is unusually strong, that's not necessarily safer either. The best investment isn't the one with the most exciting brochure. It's the one where you understand what you're being paid to risk. So don't compare Dubai and Miami by looking at the skyline. Don't compare them by looking at gross rent. And don't compare them by asking which city wealthy people like more. Take the same $1 million. Run the same 5-year clock. Count every dollar going in. Count every dollar going out. Then stress test the result. Because in real estate, the rent is not your return. The appreciation is not your profit. And the listing price is not what you own. What matters is what remains after everything. After the purchase. After the vacancy. After the management. After the maintenance. After the taxes. After the insurance. After the building costs. After the selling costs. And after the market gives you whatever return it decides to give you. That's the number investors should compare. Not Dubai versus Miami. Net return versus total risk.